Are you ready to achieve a pivot in your life? You just want to go from where you are to now to where you want to be. Pierce Brooks knows all about that. And by the end of this interview, this conversation that I have with him, you're going to know exactly how he did it and how you can do it too. Hi, I'm Rebecca Zung, top 1% attorney and the best-selling author of the books Negotiate Like You Matter and Breaking Free, a step-by-step divorce guide. And I've helped thousands of people, maybe even millions at this point, achieve the lives that they want, to go from feeling down in the dumps, lives of drama, trauma, chaos, to getting where they want to be. And I do the same thing for you here on this channel. So make sure you've subscribed and you've hit that notification bell, and that way you'll get notified when I upload brand new content, interviews, when I go live, and on and on and on. So this is part one of my conversation with former basketball player Pierce Brooks. He's now a motivational speaker. He's lived through so much trauma in his life, and he's figured out how to achieve that pivot. So this is part one of my conversation with him. So without further ado, let's dive into part one. Welcome to another episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. I'm Rebecca Zung, and today we have a special treat. If you are ever wondering how to climb out of a black hole, how to achieve a pivot, this is the guy to show you the way. This is the guy that knows how to do it. Pierce J. Brooks knows firsthand a lot about dealing with great loss and great recovery. He is an empowerment speaker now. He's dealt with all kinds of trauma. He was a former college athlete. He was pressured to excel in basketball. He lost scholarships. He had to endure his father's tragic suicide. He hit rock bottom before the age of 20. And he shared his story in a TEDx speech called Playing the Game of Social Pressure. He now speaks all over the world, and he has launched his brand, the company called Empowered Storytellers. It really fantastic, taking people's stories and helping people turn them around. So he's perfect for us and for what we are dealing with as far as dealing with toxic personalities and for figuring out how to escape them. So thank you so much, Pierce, for joining me today.
Rebecca, it's so great to be with you. Thank you.
All right. So you achieved, we talked, as I mentioned in your intro, that you achieved early success in basketball. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I grew up as the tallest kid from about kindergarten through middle school. And when you're the tallest kid, particularly the tallest black kid, everybody says you're supposed to be in the NBA. And so they put this identity on me. And at 12 years old, I picked up the ball and started listening to, what people said I was supposed to do. Started playing, and I got it pretty quickly. And because I was tall, I had this advantage of being taller and stronger than everybody. So I played well. And so what happened on the court seemed to confirm what everybody else was saying. It's like, you know what, I am good at this. Maybe I am supposed to do this. And that lasted a couple years. And then I hit one of the rock bottoms that you mentioned, sophomore year in high school, following a time where I was heavily notarized really around the country, starting to get recruited. I was a freshman on varsity, which was a big deal at that time for a championship team. So a lot of newspapers writing about me, some TV coverage, a lot of hype. And then it came a time where I inherited the team, and it was like my team. And with all this expectations, I didn't match up to what everybody thought. And I started to become discouraged, really got down on myself, started to hate basketball, but I knew I needed to continue to do it in order to get a scholarship, to get my education, right? So I stuck with it, but sticking with it, there was a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, again, letting people down, just living this life where you feel like every time you're doing something, you're not matching up to what people think of you, and you could see the expectations drop and the judgments. It was just really a rough time for me, and that lasted for over a decade.
Over a decade. Oh my goodness. I can actually relate to that because my dad is Chinese. He's a doctor. My mom is German. And, so in my household, it was doctor or lawyer was what you were supposed to do. And ultimately, I ended up becoming a lawyer. But I had gotten married at 19 the first time and had 3 kids by the time I was 23. So, and had
Wow.
dropped out of college and all of that. When ended up obviously going back to school, but I understand like that feeling of being the disappointment to everybody,
Yes.
every time I would see my parents would like, oh, there she is, 3 kids, college dropout,
Mm.
and yeah, it ultimately ends up being a great story, but at the time it's brutal.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
totally get it. So you lost 4 scholarships or
Yep.
scholarships from 4 different universities. Tell us about
Yes.
how that might have happened.
So I went to the University of San Francisco out of high school, and my coach got fired halfway through the season. And a new coach came in, this legendary coach, but he only intended to finish the year. Then another coach came in after that, and he sat us all down and said, "I'm not looking to get rid of any of you guys. I inherited this team, and I want to stick with it." So that let us all we felt at ease. I go into the summer, and I go back home, and I get a call from that coach and says it's about 2 weeks before school starts, and he says, "Pierce, we're not going to be having you back for your sophomore season." And I'm
Ooh.
just devastated because in that same week, I lost my father. So really rough time in my life. It's 2 weeks before school starts, so I don't really have options. If you would have told me in February or something, I could have had time to find another school. But by this time, scholarships were dried out. I didn't really have anything to do. So I went to junior college.
And you were what, like 19 at this
I
point?
was 19. Yep.
Oh gosh.
Yep.
So much of the weight of the world on 19-year-old shoulders.
Right. Yeah. And this disappointment and expectations dropped again. And I'm kind of like I'm at another rock bottom point in my life. Then get a scholarship to a couple things happen in between there where I get a scholarship to University of North Carolina, Wilmington, didn't have enough credits to transfer over, couldn't go there. Got a scholarship to University of New Orleans. The BP oil spill happened, if you remember, where the
Sure.
tons and tons of
Yep.
oil was going to the Gulf.
Yep.
They lost their funding, so I couldn't go there. Then I end up going to the University at Texas A&M Kingsville, small school in South Texas, and we had a losing season. The coach takes me to the airport at the end of the season and says, on my trip for spring break, he says, "Pierce, we're not going to be having you back for your senior season." Lost a scholarship there, and so I have again no options. I don't know what to do. I can't transfer to another NCAA school. The assistant coach of that school says, "Hey, Pierce, there's a school that I went to in North Dakota called Dickinson State." And North Dakota didn't, growing up, born and raised in Southern California, North Dakota doesn't sound like a place I'm ever going to go
Yep.
on paper, but I didn't have any options. I had no ego. It's like, I just want to finish my schooling, and got a scholarship there. And it ended up being the best experience of my life. That's where I found public speaking, became the first commencement speaker as a student in the school's history. And
Amazing.
I loved it. And so I wouldn't have got there any other way. So it all worked out.
Yeah, isn't that always the way though? Like where the things that you think you want so much end up being, if you don't get it, it ends up being the best thing that ever happened to you, but it's so hard to see when it's happening to you at that moment,
Yes.
you know? So in your speech, you talk about um, your dad walking out of games, and if you didn't play well, how did that affect your relationship with him?
He it affected it in so many layered ways that I'm still really unraveling, even to this day, because I looked up to my father. He was my hero, and I looked up to him. I very much wanted to please him and get his approval. And it seems like no matter what I did on the court, I couldn't really get it. And at that time, I'm able to, because I did a lot of introspective work to understand why I quote unquote failed at basketball. And all of it had to do with how I was in my own head.
Hmm.
I had this paralyzing performance anxiety that I just couldn't get out of. And I tried a lot of things, but it was all the wrong things. And I realized that later. But um, so I'd be so focused on him and performing for him that I was never focused on the game. And so that, that's where I'd get a little distracted. But him walking out would make me, it'd take me out of the game. It'd make me, focus on him, and he would kind of not talk to me for a few weeks because of it, because I played well and he'd teach lessons. And so I had to learn to cope with it, to not need him, that I don't need him to be there. And that's what really helped me kind of get through it.
So I want to just dig into that a little bit more, because a lot of the people that are in my community that follow me are dealing with narcissists, or people that they they either have narcissistic traits or they're abusive in some way. And I'm not saying that your dad was abusive, but I want to just kind of, do you think that walking out on you was a way of trying to control you, trying to punish you, anything like that?
Yeah, it was his way of trying to motivate me, and he was very much teach you a lesson. And so he thought that me, or him walking out, was going to motivate me more, to that, like, so that, like, next time he's in there, I'm going to impress him, and I'm going to put all this work in to have a better performance next time. And for me, it did the total opposite. And some people, that works for some people. There are
Well,
some.
if it does work, though, it still makes you feel terrible
Yeah.
inside. I mean, you're not going to be motivated by the right things, even still at that point, I would think.
Sure, yeah. And I'm more talking about, yeah, it definitely hurts either way. I guess some people, it works as far as like achieving what he wanted to achieve as far as performance. That may motivate some people, but that didn't work on me. I'm
Yeah.
much more. I know I was a sensitive kid. I'm a sensitive guy, so that was never going to be the approach.
So, but I liked what you said, that you learned how to not let it affect you. Can you talk more about that? Because I think that's like right in there is that spot that's where you first, I think, were learning to pivot. I mean,
Yes.
that's a type of pivot, really.
Yep.
So can you talk about, how did you get there? How did you get yourself to a point where you didn't think about it anymore, or it didn't bother you, or whatever you had to do to deal with that?
I think it all. I think pivoting and all this stuff deals with a similar kind of. There's a common denominator in that it's all acceptance and expectations. So in the beginning, my expectations is I expected my father to be like every other father for all these other kids. My dad's supposed to stay no matter what I do. He's supposed to just be at my game if I'm performing well or not. My dad is supposed to stay there. That's what all the other dads are doing, right? But I got to the point where I expected my dad to be my dad, and that's what helped me. Now I expect him to walk out, or I expect him to not show up. So once I start expecting which is his behavior, that's when I was able to, I came to an acceptance, and I was free from that. So I had to come to a point where, because the last couple years, maybe the last year or so, my senior year, I don't, maybe he went to one game or something like that. Senior year of high school, he didn't come to any games in college. So my freshman year, so I just expected him to not be there.
And how old were you when he died?
I was 19.
Oh, 19. Okay.
Yeah.
So what lesson have you learned from basketball that applies throughout life?
Oh my gosh, it's countless. I think the biggest lesson I learned from my failures at basketball is that you have to, if you want to accomplish something that you really believe in, you have to surrender and devote your life to it. And it means being uncomfortable and sacrificing. So the reason that I didn't become everything that I could be, and that's not to say that I would have went to the NBA or something, but I didn't squeeze all the juice out of my basketball experience from a playing standpoint, because I didn't put my all into it. So because those moments where I got down or I lost confidence and my father walked out, instead of going out in the gym and shooting for 2 extra hours, or practicing my ball handling to really build my confidence, which was the core part of the problem, I stayed in the room and maybe sulked, or I got down on myself, and I didn't practice to get myself out of this hole, you know? So that's what it's that going the extra mile approach that I brought over to what I'm doing now. So if I'm speaking, I need to be working on my speech for X number of hours a day. I need to wake up at 5 in the morning and, finish a draft or practice my vocal variety or something like that. So it's that extra time in and surrendering and devotion to it that I think I grabbed more than anything.
So, but what I also hear you saying is that, instead of having a pity party, like life isn't fair,
Yeah.
and this is horrible, and you could have very easily fallen into this victim mentality, and
Yeah.
nobody would have blamed you for it,
Right.
with all of the things, the adversities that you had to overcome. But what I'm hearing you saying is that you said, no, I'm going to take responsibility for my own life,
Yes.
and I can choose to see myself as a victim, or I can choose to see myself as being a victor, being victorious instead of a victim.
Right.
So,
100%. I could have looked, and for a long time I did look at everything the wrong way and grab the wrong lessons out of every situation. For example, that coach came in from San Francisco and said, Pierce, everybody, we're not looking to get rid of you. I could have just hung on to that little part. And even though he got rid of me and been focused on, you said you weren't going to do that. You said this, you said that, you're supposed to, or I could focus on what the actual truth, which is I should have been a player, or I was in control of being the best player that I could be so that I could be irreplaceable, so that he has no choice but to keep me. And that wasn't the case. I was, as far as my game, I was disposable at that time. So I had to come to that acceptance that I didn't put it all out there, that I didn't work on my game in the way that I should have. And ultimately I have to control what I can control. And I controlled that, so I was responsible for it, as you said.
yeah, which is amazing. I mean, and to learn how to pivot at such a young age. Thanks for watching part one of my conversation with the incredible, indomitable Pierce J. Brooks. Isn't he awesome? If you like this video, give it a like, give it a share, drop me a comment, drop him a comment. Let us know what you enjoyed the most from his conversation so far. And make sure you've subscribed and you've hit that notification bell so that when we upload part two, you'll get notified right away. If you're getting ready to negotiate with anyone, especially with a narcissist, grab my free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet at winmynegotiation.com. And if you want to join me and thousands of others who are dealing with exactly what you're dealing with, come join me in my free private Facebook group called Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Thanks so much for stopping by. Remember, today's a great day to negotiate your best life. I'll see you in the next video.